All right. Thanks for pressing record, Toby. We are at the Ezer Mizan bone marrow table, and I was just interviewing Dina here. And then Yvonne came over and said, I saw you're interviewing people. Can I talk to you? So, Yvonne Green, you're a poet?
I'm a poet, yes, and I've come to Limud Toronto from London to read from Jam and Jerusalem and my other books. And I've just finished my presentation.
Wow. So what was the topic of your presentation?
The presentation was called From Bukhara to Iraq, and that was via England. And it really addresses geography, history, food, politics, and all the imperatives that kettle up in a family to make their identity.
So what's the first? It's something to Iraq. Is that what you said?
Bukhara to Iraq.
And so what's Bukhara?
Well, our family was from Central Asia. In fact, I'm wearing something made of ikat. And we were a 2,700-year presence in the region. It's an area that's called Uzbekistan today, but it was originally, when we were there, latterly it was the Emirate of Bukhara. But prior to that, Jews were there, and it was the area called Transoxania originally when we came there, at the behest of King Solomon. So we predate the destruction of the temple.
Wow, so that's some solid history there. And then so you moved to Iraq after that?
No, we didn't. Oh. The story goes that I write about my own family background, and as a result of that, I was invited by various other communities to address theirs. So the Iraqi World Jewish Community asked me to write about the 75th anniversary of the Farhud, which was the event which really brought an end to their 2,700-year presence. It was basically a huge Nazi-inspired pogrom, which the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem instigated, and he was operative in Iraq during the war, and it was a terrible, terrible occurrence, and it destroyed the history of Jews in Iraq. I also addressed other things such as the presence of a Jewish cemetery in Mauritius, because the British took Jews who were trying to get into Palestine and they shipped them out to the Indian Ocean, to Mauritius, and many of them were buried there because they died en route, and they were kept in camps until Britain was no longer in charge of the protectorate of Palestine.
Wow.
So I had poems about that and various other cultures. Yes.
Have you always written poetry, or have you just started doing it specifically about these kinds of things?
I've always written poetry. Since before I could write, I just stood up and declaimed.
Wow.
And then I could always read. So it's like a strange thing. I won a prize when I was 50, having been unpublished until then. And my mother said, it's nothing. All Bukharians are poets. So I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, your great-great-aunt was the last Emir of Bukhara's court poet. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? She said, we didn't want to encourage you.
What? We didn't want to encourage you to be a poet? What did she want you to be, like a lawyer, a doctor?
Well, I was a lawyer. I did everything right. I was a lawyer. I'm married. I've got children. I'm a grandmother. I did everything right. But the poet bit was a little too alternative, you know.
Wow. Well, you naturally came to it yourself. That's hilarious.
I always did it. It's a compulsion. I used to sit in my room in chambers because I'm an English barrister and a New York attorney. I used to sit in my room and I used to write poetry every day, feeling like a pornographer. Just quietly doing it and then putting it away in a drawer. And then one day I read about Emily Dickinson and said, well, that's not for me. And I started sending the work out, and eventually it started winning prizes. And every book published by Smith Doorstop has won a prize.
Wow.
And none of them, they always go into second editions. So I'm very proud of it. I'm not a shrinking violet poet.
No, that's good. You're getting at it. What's the story with Emily Dickinson? Like, she didn't publish?
Well, what she did was she wrote poetry and she hid it under the bed.
Right.
And she was shy. And when a publisher came to see her, she said, I am like the sherry in the glasses that the guests leave behind.
Well, that's very poetic. Just meaning she didn't want anything.
Well, she basically predicted that she would be passed over.
Oh, right.
So-
So she didn't even bother submitting
She
it
did
or whatever.
try, but she was a very complex character. And basically, whilst you can be complex while you're writing, or sensitive, shall we say, once you come out into the world with your work, it doesn't really do much good if you won't read and you won't
Right.
share, really.
Yeah, you have to go out there and promote it. You can't just be like, oh, here's my stuff. I don't know if you like it. You got to be doing what you're doing, walking around with your books, doing talks, asking to be interviewed, all that kind of stuff. And so you came all the way from London. See, normally when somebody says London and Toronto, you go, oh, London, Ontario, but clearly you're from London, England.
Well, I'll tell you, I was given a table at Indigo Books at Bay and Bloor, and they said to me, oh, you know, writers normally sit here and wait for the world to come to them. So I spent the whole morning reading poetry and saying to people as they walk by, can I read you a poem? You know, would you like a poem about loneliness? Would you like a poem about marriage? Would you like a poem about children? And it was just such fun because somehow the instinct seemed to be right and everyone bought the books. And here again today, I've sort of just said to passers by, would you like this or that poem? And I think you just go with your instinct about.
Yeah, you seem very
I wonder what would be
emotionally in tune.
I wonder what is a good poem for you.
Oh my gosh, if you had listened to my discussion with Dina, you'd know what I'm going through.
Let me see if I can get you one without knowing. All right, I'll just read you this one, and I don't know why. I am not a mother who fries an onion and fills the house with expectation, the ever-open presence alert for returning minions. I am not the stalwart who never flinches. I remember my own mother cooking for everyone, then lying in a dark room.
Wow. I am not a mother who fries an onion and fills the house with expectation, the ever-open presence alert for returning minions. I am not the stalwart who never flinches. I remember my own mother cooking for everyone, then lying in a dark room. So what does that mean, do you think? Well, you wrote
You
it.
tell me. Does it mean anything for you?
Well, I mean, even just the top, because it says, that looks like it's almost the title, I Am Not a Mother, but it's part of the poem. You know, I was saying to Dina that I wish, my birthday's on Tuesday and I'm getting older, and I just suddenly hit me recently when I sold my condo that, oh my God, I don't have a family, like I didn't have kids, I didn't have a wife. I broke up with my girlfriends and now they're all married with kids, and it's been very, very difficult for me. And so I guess when I saw that title said I'm not a mother, it's like I guess I don't want to be a mother, but I'm not a father and I don't have a wife who's a mother. So, you know, so I guess it's saying that, her, you know, if you wrote this from your perspective, the author's mother fried an onion, filled the house, was waiting for people to come home. I'm not the person who does that. I remember my own mother cooking for everyone, then lying in a dark room. So
What maybe it means for you is that although you're mourning some things that you're not as your birthday approaches, it also has a huge price, those things which you are mourning. You know, if you did do those things, your life might have been demanding in a different way, not in the mother role, but in the nurturer role, or maybe your partner might have failed your expectation or been unable to live up to it. But it may well be that at this stage in your life, you can make a better go of it. And I've got loads of poems in here about survival and success and, you know, people turning their lives around. I'll just read you